This is a test. Call the meeting to order.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can't hear you, whoever's speaking.
Oh,
I can hear Mr. Beaton.
because I didn't have the mic
Can you
on,
hear
that
me
could be why. Sorry. Yes, sorry. Please, Reverend Mulberry, could you please do the invocation?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
Father, again, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your goodness towards us. We thank you for how you blessed us to come together again. Thank you for how you've been so good all week long. You spared us, you allowed us to see this day thus far, and we say thank you. We pray, dear God, that your hand of wisdom and guidance will be upon this, your people, as we come together, Lord, for make business decisions concerning this city. Pray for your hand of directions, for your instructions and purpose. Manifest your glory in all we do. And we say thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Chris, could you start the Pledge of Allegiance for us, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Sunny.
Chair Correa,
Present.
Ms. Craybill,
Present.
Ms. Van Rensburg,
Present.
Ms. Schonberger's not present for the record, Mr. Beaton,
Present.
Mr. Hollister. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the swearing-in ceremony for Mr. Beaton.
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Beaton's swearing-in ceremony was recorded, and I'd like to play it for the record if that's acceptable.
That's acceptable.
Give
Thank
me
you.
just a moment to flip screens.
Okay.
To
I
read
lose
from-
people sometimes, so if you need something to be left off, that's where. All right, so we're gonna take it from the top, and if you would just read after me.
Okay,
I, Lawrence Beaton,
I, Lawrence
a
Beaton,
Historic Preservation Board appointee of the Palaca City Commission,
a Historic Preservation Board appointee of the City of Palatka Commission,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will faithfully perform the duties
that I will faithfully perform the duties
of my appointed office
of my appointed office
and will support and honor,
and will support and honor,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
all applicable laws of the state of Florida,
all applicable laws of the state of Florida,
Putnam County,
Putnam County,
the city of
the
Palaca,
City of Palatka,
as well as the beliefs,
as well as the beliefs,
vision,
vision,
mission,
mission,
policies,
policies,
procedures,
procedures,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
and code of conduct
and code of conduct
of the City of Palaca Historic Preservation Board.
of the City of Palatka Historic Preservation Board.
I hereby, through this oath,
I hereby, through this oath,
affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust
affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust
in a fair,
in a fair,
equitable,
equitable,
and ethical manner
and ethical manner
befitting the dignity
befitting the dignity
and responsibilities of the office.
and responsibilities of the office.
Welcome. Thank you again for your term, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I just
Thank you, Larry, for continuing your service. Oh, okay. Are we done there? Okay.
You're welcome.
That's okay. Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Did everybody have an opportunity to review the September 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion. Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Okay, we'll move along. Public comments? Anybody here for public comments? Nope, I don't see anybody. So we'll close public comments. New business, HPB case 21-24. Request to enclose air conditioners and generator with fence and install new handicap ramp. Location Jordan Main Street. Applicant Episcopal Church in the Diocese of Florida, Inc. Ms. Walsh?
Thank you. Lisa Walsh, Planning Director. This request, as you mentioned, is to enclose a new air conditioning system with a fence and to install a handicap ramp along the the rear sacristy door in the same general area of the building. The church structure at this address was originally constructed in 1854 and has been well maintained and is fully in use at this time. In 2017, due to Hurricane Irma, the structure was without power for 9 days. And during that time, black mold grew all up on the inside of the structure. And the church had an extensive restoration project on their hands. So hence the new air conditioning system. And if you look at the photographs, Sunny, on the next page of the staff report, please. You all know where this church is, correctly? Correct?
Yes.
200 Main Street.
Yes.
The next picture beneath that should show a generalized there in the rear part of the sanctuary building, which is also the sacristy. You can see the new air conditioning units that have been installed. They're kind of hard to see in that photograph, but they're behind that first tree and to the right a little bit. That's the area that they want to fence in. And then the area behind that where the door is coming out of the sacristy, that's where the ramp would go in. On the next picture, please. There you go. That's a better photograph of the area. The fencing would come out and be parallel to the sidewalk coming out of that rear door that you can see, and then it would go all the way to the sidewalk that you can see at the front of the picture, in front of the air conditioning units, and then go out towards 2nd Street to the property line. In the picture beneath that is what the existing sidewalk looks like. It's a step down, and there's several people that now use walkers in the congregation, and they would like to be able to get in and out of that doorway easier. The doorway itself is not handicap accessible because it's not wide enough, but you can certainly get a walker up there. You couldn't really get a wheelchair up there. The ramp that they want to put in would be at least 3.5 feet wide and at an appropriate ADA slope to meet to the sidewalk at the far end of the air conditioning units. Next photograph, please. That's their site plan sketch where you can see the fencing outlined and the ramp. And the next photograph will show an area. Oops, that's the ramp. One more down, please. There you go. Thank you. That is an example of the fencing that they would like to install. That's the existing fencing around the cemetery part on the same property. And then this is the fencing panels that they'd like to use around the air conditioning. The fencing will also have some screening in the front of it, particularly along 2nd Avenue. And that's the material that's proposed is a Japanese yew or a podocarpus screening material. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. You may also want to know that Mr. Westbury won't be here today because, as I mentioned earlier, he injured himself and he's at home recuperating.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, Ms. Walsh? It's pretty clear, I think.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bean?
just a question about the handicap ramp, the lower end of the ramp, not the end that's next to the exit door. Will it will extend to the existing sidewalk? Is that, or will the existing sidewalk have to be moved any?
I don't believe it will have to be moved. They're planning on keeping it where it is.
Okay. So there's enough drop from the doorway. I noticed the doorway's not very high, but there's enough drop there between there to match up to the existing sidewalk. So the ramp pretty much will be hidden by the fence also. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
What material are they going to use to make the ramp?
Concrete?
Okay. Anybody else? Are you going to say something, Mr. Beaton?
I was just going to say motion to accept staff recommendation to approve as presented by the diocese.
Nice second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Okay. Great.
If I may, Madam
You
Chair,
may.
note for the record that Laura Schonberger is now present. However, she did not participate in the vote.
So you're here, Laura. Because I harassed you. Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an item that was postponed from the last meeting, which is review of draft of updated Palaca Community Development Plan for consistency with Palaca Code of Ordinances, Palaca Comprehensive Plan, and Historic Preservation Efforts. Okay, we've had quite a bit of time to review the CRA plan, like since the last meeting, we all had it to look at, and it's here in today's packet. Anybody have any specific questions? Are we going to have a presentation? Are we going to, Miss Walsh, are you going to answer questions? Are we having a presentation? Are we just?
Mr. John Jones is expected.
Okay, there he is. He's up on
Online,
the screen.
yes.
Okay,
Good afternoon,
good
Madam Chair.
afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Historic Preservation Board. My name is John Jones with SNME. I am seated in Orlando, Florida this afternoon. And I have a brief presentation that kind of summarizes the Palaca Community Redevelopment Plan. If you would like, I can give you that presentation and then we can go on to the agenda item, or we can just go directly to the agenda item. It is your call, Madam Chair.
The presentation, I think, would be great.
Okay, very good. Let me get control of the screen, and I will present the item here momentarily. And let's see, come on, slideshow. Bear with me here. Technology is working rather slowly at the moment. All right, I hope you all see a screen that says agenda with 5 dots.
Yes.
All right. So today we're going to talk about the CRA plan, the update outline, what's in the CRA plan itself. We're going to talk about the 4-point action plan, the redevelopment strategies that are identified. We'll also touch on the redevelopment agency goals. These are the day-to-day operational goals of the agency. We'll look at the tax increment fund revenue projections for the CRA. That's how much money is being generated within the CRA boundaries. And then we'll look at the next steps in the adoption process, where we are in the whole adoption process. So a little timeline as to when the CRA started and where we are today. It began in 1983, and then the North and South Historic District were added to the Central Business District portion. The TIF districts added in 1994. In 2009, the previous CRA plan was completed. In 2012, the CRA operational timeframe was extended to 2044. And then beginning in 2020, the CRA plan update process started. Here you can see the outline of the CRA area. It's comprised of 3 different districts: the Central Business District in the dark blue in the middle, the North Historic District in the light blue, and then the South Historic District in the green. The numbers and letters that you see on the side are the outline of the actual plan itself, showing what are the components that are within that plan. The introduction to look at the accomplishments, the action plan, the conceptual master plan, the redevelopment agency goals, the budget and revenue, and the appendix that contains the existing conditions analysis, public input summary, and a legal description of the CRA district. The 4-point action plan, the first point, continue infrastructure improvements. These are the 4 main guiding strategies for the Palatka Community Redevelopment Agency. Establish and reinforce connections is number 2. Activate opportunity sites is number 3. And encourage private sector investment within the community redevelopment areas, number 4. So these are the 4 big redevelopment strategies that we recommend the CRA use when they're discussing or considering annual work programs, annual budgets, and annual projects. The next slide that you look at is the conceptual master plan. This conceptual master plan shows where the proposed improvements are scheduled or are proposed to go geographically within the CRA area. So you see some existing streets and existing improvements, and then also proposed improvements within the CRA. Each one of these proposed and physical improvements is to address the redevelopment strategies, and we'll go over those in detail. So the first redevelopment strategy, continue infrastructure improvements. That includes addressing water, sewer, stormwater, intersection improvements, and safety improvements. Oh, let's see. The next, establish and reinforce connections. That's neighborhood to neighborhood connections, neighborhood to business connections, neighborhood to employment centers, and neighborhoods to public amenities. How do we make it easier for people to get around within the CRA, within downtown Palatka, without necessarily having to use a car? Giving them options, basically, whether it's using a bicycle or pedestrian or using your automobile. And then this map shows some of those proposed transportation improvements and connection improvements. And then some of the details shown in the plan to kind of exemplify what those improvements could be. Here you have the 9th Street existing cross-section, and then you have the proposed improvements to 9th Street, which would include landscaping. Proposed improvements for Reed Street include an expanded multi-use trail on the south side of the street and some pedestrian shading as well, some landscaping there to provide shade. For 10th Street, we have landscaping improvements on both sides of the street, and also we're showing some private sector development coming in there subsequently. On 6th Street, we have proposed improvements to accommodate additional pedestrian and landscaping improvements there. So you can see the existing and the proposed. The next strategy, activating opportunity sites. We've identified over a dozen sites within the city that have the possibility for immediate redevelopment. Some are publicly owned, some are privately owned. They cover a range of different uses, and most of the sites could be used for generating income, setting up a business there. So here's the map that identifies the different sites in the area. And the purpose of identifying these sites is to demonstrate to the private sector development community some of the redevelopment opportunities that are present within the Palatka CRA, areas where they could invest their money and start a business. So some of the sites here that we see, here's one at Reed and 6th Street, kind of as a food truck area or an open community gathering area. Here at 12th Street in Madison, we have a community garden area. And then in between 9th and 11th Streets, we have the opportunity for some restaurant development and neighborhood commercial development. And also some office development there on the south side of town at Clark Street in 10. Other opportunity sites are available for potential recreational improvements as well, and open space improvements. Now, these opportunity sites are located along the water, along the St. Johns River there, and provide public access to the water and to the river. The 4th redevelopment strategy is encouraging private sector investment. And the city currently has several programs available to encourage private sector investment in the CRA. These include the building improvement grants and the residential improvement grants. And then creating a marketing brochure, additional redevelopment incentives, infrastructure improvement assistance, and expedited development permitting review is additional incentives to encourage private sector development. So you've got a staff that's identified some sites. The next step is marketing those sites to the private sector. The next step of the plan, we're going to look at the goals. These are the day-to-day operational goals of the CRA, of the redevelopment agency. And they cover the administration of the CRA, housing ownership, increasing ownership, diversity, and addressing historical housing, community and culture, infrastructure, public space and amenities, public health and safety, and the regulatory environment. These were the general goals that we looked at when we reviewed the Palatka CRA plan and whether or not it was compliant with the LDC requirements and also the comprehensive plan guidelines for historic preservation. The next section of the report looked at Tiff revenue. Tiff revenue, that's tax increment fund revenue. That is the revenue, the tax, ad valorem tax revenue that's collected within the CRA boundaries. So the CRA has 3 different districts that were established at different times within the CRA. So they all have a different base year. The base year is the value of that particular district when it was brought into the CRA. So as the value of that district increases from the year it was brought into the CRA, that additional increment of revenue goes into the tax increment fund. Now, the tax revenue that was coming to the city and the county before the CRA area was, or before that area was brought into the CRA, that amount of tax revenue continues to go to the city and the county. But after that district is brought into the CRA, any additional tax revenue goes to the CRA itself and goes into the tax increment revenue fund, where it can be used on projects and programs that are identified in the CRA plan. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of the previous CRA plan reviews that have happened so far. So on the 9th of August, we had the draft plan reviewed by the CRA board. They authorized the advancement of the program through continued review. The planning board looked at it on September 7th. Y'all looked at it the day before, but decided to table it and come back to this meeting. And we kind of jumped the gun on the found compliant with the city's historic preservation policies. We are hoping that it will be found compliant and that you will recommend approval. It was found compliant with the comprehensive plan policies and goals by the planning board at their September 7th meeting. All right, so let me jump out of the presentation and we'll jump into the actual agenda item itself. Does anyone from the board, Madam Chairman, have any questions thus far?
Does anybody have any questions, specific questions? No, apparently not.
Okay. All right. Oh, one more thing here. Sorry about that.
What, are you there?
A little early.
Hello, okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right. The next steps in the process are the CRA board will be acting on this, considering it for adoption at their October 11th meeting. And then the city commission will be considering it for adoption at their November 18th and December 9th meeting. So those are the next steps in the approval process. All right, let me bring up the agenda items for you here. There we are. Can you see the Word document in front of you? Let me see what we got here.
Did we lose him?
Anybody? Is anybody there?
Yeah, we're here. We couldn't hear you though.
Okay, very
You
good.
there is the
All right,
question,
yes,
not
ma'am, I
us.
am here.
Okay, we're all
Can
here
y'all-
then. That's
Can
good.
you all see the screen that has the Word document where it says agenda memorandum?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And
Okay,
we
so
have
what
it
we're
here.
doing today is we're asking the Historic Planning Board to review the proposed revisions in the CRA plan and determine whether or not they are consistent with Chapter 54 Planning, Article 3 Historic Districts of the Palatka Code, and let's see, and whether they are also consistent with the specific objectives and policies of the Palatka Comprehensive Plan and the future land use and housing element. And so we went through the plan and we cited very specific instances where those items, what those code references were for, and then what the land use policies addressed, and then how those were addressed within the community redevelopment plan. Let me spit that out. So in the future land use element, we had 2 objectives and with several policies with regards to protection of natural and historic resources. You see the objectives and the policies listed right there. And then in the gray area, this is the rationale or the explanation as to how the community redevelopment plan addresses those policies. So the 2021 Palatka Community Redevelopment Plan acknowledges the North and South historic districts that are contained within the CRA area and notes the page and where those are. It also notes the location and the type of historic designations of the historic resources and structures within the CRA. That's historic features maps, page 72 in the existing conditions section. And the redevelopment strategies propose programming to preserve and repair historic housing stock. Goal 6, goal 11 are the specific goals with regards to reinforcing and preserving the historic housing stock within the Palatka Community Redevelopment area. The next item we looked at was the housing element. The housing element had 1 objective and 3 policies that address historic preservation. And when we looked at those policies and we looked at the Palatka Community Redevelopment Plan update, we saw that once again it acknowledges North and South historic districts within the CRA. And then it also contains strategies with regards to the preservation and repair of historic housing stock. Goal 6 and goal 11, and also goal 22, addressing the regulatory environment that directly address those policies in the housing element. So it is supportive and compliant with those policies listed in the housing element. So it is a recommendation that the City of Palatka Historic Preservation Board find the 2021 Palatka Community Redevelopment Plan to be consistent with the relevant goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted Palatka Comprehensive Plan, specifically the future land use element and the housing element, and that it is supporting of this city's historic preservation's efforts, and issue a determination and formal recommendation to the Palatka Community Redevelopment Agency Governing Board and the Palatka City Commission to favorably consider adoption of the 2021 Palatka Community Redevelopment Plan. Whew, that was a mouthful. That's 1 sentence, I think.
Okay, can we ask any questions, Mr. Jones, or?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chairman. I turn it over to you.
Okay. When we talk about historic preservation, which is what this group is about, and we talk about the CRA, there's a little confusion, I think, for people when we cross-reference, because the boundaries are different between the historic district and the TIF district. So personally, I always refer to it as the North and South TIF versus the North and South Historic District, which are different boundaries, as to not confuse people further. But also downtown historic preservation is pretty much near to non-existent. There is not a historic overlay or a listing on the National Register for the downtown district, and there doesn't seem to be any in the wind. So my question is, or my statement is, how do we ensure the historic integrity of the downtown structures that are significant to the character of the city when there is nothing there to even give them the slightest protection? Yes, it's an honorary designation to be on the National Register, but there is no even barriers for protection. There's no review. There's nothing that happens to those structures downtown. And is that something, is that one of the objectives or goals of the CRA plan? and in terms of the land development concept to see if we can ever do an overlay. There's a design overlay, but that's it.
So you're spot on with regards to the observation of protection.
Yeah.
And you need to have a local ordinance to
Yes, I agree.
protect those structures. You do have several structures, historic structures on the National Registry and also in the Florida Master Site File within the Central Business District.
I'm aware of that. I'm the one that got the National Register application and approval for the Hotel James.
Okay,
So,
fabulous.
Yeah, I'm
So-
aware of that.
So the answer is the CRA plan is supportive of the establishment of a ordinance, historic preservation ordinance, just based by the general, how do I say, the general goal of supporting historic preservation within the community redevelopment district.
Okay, because Palaca is also designated as a certified local government, and that could be a source of funding to have a new Florida Master Site Plan assessment done
Yes,
for downtown, as well as the other two districts.
yes, and I would strongly recommend that as well as pursuing DEO, the Department of Economic Opportunities, technical assistance grants to also assist with putting together a survey and also putting together an ordinance as well.
Okay, great. And again, and I'm kind of going first, and I'm sorry if anybody wants to jump in. There's also no mention of the downtown murals, which is kind of our main source of public art, and the fact that the placard is on the Florida Mural Trail. It is a marketing promotional opportunity as well as public art feature for our downtown. We're also a trail town, designated as a trail town, and it would be helpful if that's again supported within the CRA plan, that whole concept of trail town, and again attraction to people on bicycles and hiking, etc. And the only other thing I wanted to comment on was that there's really not a official, or I couldn't find it, maybe it's my fault, recommendation for a CRA director, which maybe could also function as the city's promotional marketing person.
Correct. There is a reference with regards to goal 1, maintaining the requisite administrative and financial mechanisms
Okay,
to
it was
ensure
pretty
the
general
continued-
though, yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, anybody
Hey.
else have anything? Did we lose Elizabeth? Did Elizabeth go out for a break?
Ms. Cra,
Anybody else have any comments or questions? I kind of monopolize things and I'm sorry. It's simple.
Madam Chair,
I know. Yes.
could I get Mr. Jones to refer back to the memorandum? It would be on page 4 under housing element.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I address Ms. Van Rensburg? Ms. Van Rensburg is noted as leaving for the record for the day at 4:32.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Beaton. Go ahead. Could you say that again so Mr. Jones can hear us? Is Mr. Jones there?
I think he,
Yes, ma'am.
my question, I wanted to go back to page 4, which I think we're there.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not so sure this question is for Mr. Jones. It may be a question for a city official, and they may not have an answer today. But policy C.1.5.I says the city shall assist and support the local historical preservation organization in its efforts to identify and preserve structures of historical significance. And I just wondered what specific organization this is referring to.
That's a good question. I think when this was put together back in the early 2000s, if not previously, they kept that language general with regards to naming it local historic preservation organization for want of identifying a specific group.
Okay, and I guess basically the same question with the next item. It says the city shall assist the Historical Preservation Society in applying for and utilizing federal and state assistance programs. So I'm thinking this could possibly be a reference to the Putnam County Historical Society, but I don't know that for a fact since that's not the name of that organization.
That's a very good question, Mr. Bede. I would have to defer to the city to answer that. Once again, this reflects the time at which the comprehensive plan element and policy was developed. And so it may be a reference to the County Historic Preservation Society.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
that language is all taken directly from the comp plan,
comprehensive plan.
and which hasn't been updated in quite some time, and those names may not be correct at this moment.
Okay, did you hear that, Mr. Bean?
Yes.
That it may be outdated information based on the current comprehensive plan. That needs
Yes.
to be updated apparently at some point. So,
But I would imagine that, just my opinion, that in the first item, the historical preservation organization may be referring to this board.
okay, okay.
I don't know. Let me see if I can find a page. 13 under accomplishments, the capital improvement project status.
Wait a minute.
Sorry to have you bouncing all around. I think this is in order, so. I mean, in order as in chronologically.
No, then they're not.
Okay, it's capital improvement project status for the North Historic District.
I think we're all still looking. So we're in the North Historic District. It's in that section.
Yes, and my page says 13, and there's planning, administrative, and regulatory initiatives at the top, and then capital improvement projects.
Okay.
There we
Okay.
go. Here we go. Okay, so it says streetscape improvements, and it says gas lamps restoration completed. And there are no gas lamps in the North Historic District.
All righty, we will correct that.
They're only in the
Yeah.
South Historic District.
And let's see, I think I had one more thing. Bear with me just a second if I can't find it quickly. Probably in the bigger scheme of things, is it going to make a big difference? The chair covered most of the same items that I had. There is a lot of confusion about the district lines on the part of the public about the fact that the Historic Preservation Board covers, has jurisdiction in some of the central business district because it's part of the overlap of the South Historic District. So that does cause some confusion. Okay, under goals, page 43. I'll let you get to that page. And then I'm looking at goal 6.
Yes, sir.
Could we change the wording of goal 6 to say preservation of historic structures, meaning that housing might be interpreted to mean residential housing versus commercial?
Sure.
Just change housing to structures or buildings.
Okay. We will add and historic structures to that.
Great.
Make it more inclusive rather than less.
Yes, because as Ms. Correa just pointed out, we have a number of very significant non-residential historic structures in Palatka. And I think that's all I had, Madam Chair.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Not for him. But, yeah. Like it's- Now it's a different district, North District, and so on and so forth. Who governs that distribution?
Well, that's a good question. It's kind of haphazard now. When you say govern,
Who gives out the money?
the CRA money?
The tax, you know,
The TIF funds.
money, yeah.
Yes, so that's the CRA board ultimately, and then the final approval comes from the city commission, which is kind of one and the same. The CRA board has two other members that are not on the commission. The whole commission is on the CRA board. Whatever funding or grants are applied for, you bring it to the CRA board with your plan and all your documents. They approve it or not. And if they approve it, then it goes to the city commission for final approval before the release of any funds. And then there's more than that afterwards, but that's the basic.
And it's guaranteed people in the North District and South District are
Up to this point, Mr. Jones, I think at a presentation, I heard you say something differently, but we were always led to believe that the South TIF money could only be spent in the South TIF district, ditto for North and Central. You said there could be interchangeably spent across districts. That's not something most of us who learned about the CRA ever heard until you mentioned that. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. There is no state requirement that money collected within a specific district be only spent within that district when that district is part of a larger redevelopment district.
But
So
Yeah.
it is a
City's been
local policy
operating
decision.
differently, but yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because do you have that in writing anywhere? Do you have that
Yes, I do.
documentation?
Yes,
Could you send it to Miss Walsh, please? Because I'd like to see it, because I'm just one of those people that just likes to see.
yes,
it.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else have anything? No?
So does that mean that the body that's governing the TIF money can spend the money wherever they want to?
As
Within the
long as
CRA.
within the CRA district.
Okay, what oversight do we have that that's going to be done fairly? You know, all the money could go to the business district or something like that.
Ideally, the policymakers would distribute the improvements and programming equitably throughout all three districts.
So it's an idealistic approach, and you've got to trust that they're honest and ethical. It's basically the long and the short of that.
Have we had any problems with it being dispersed? Because you have not crossed the lines. So
Well, up to this point, it's only been spent within those specific
That's right,
districts for
yeah.
those funds collected for that TIF. So,
don't tell them.
but so we don't, we don't know as far as beyond that. And we again have to assume, I don't think any of us audited anything that was done, at least since I've been here. So, I mean, there've been auditors that have come through. I shouldn't say that, but citizen wise, nobody's audited it. So we just, again, you elect people and you assume they're in those leadership roles and they're going to act with honesty and integrity and also represent everybody within that CRA district in this case.
Yeah, the districts that are receiving the short shrift are the historic districts with regards to tax increment fund revenue. The central business district has the lion's share of the tax increment fund revenue.
It's a commercial.
And the two historic districts have the smallest amount of TIF revenue.
Anything else? Anybody have any other questions? The only, I have one more, Mr. Jones, and then I'll be quiet.
ma'am.
You made reference to the district app, and the district app is only applicable for use in the downtown business and central business district versus the
Okay.
the historic districts.
Okay.
It's designed for the National Main Street program, and we do have it. Revitalize Historic Palaca, which is a 501c3, is the administrator for it. Because we used to be Main Street, and because we can no longer be Main Street, we changed our nonprofit name. But we are the administrators for the app, but it only encompasses downtown, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
Make that note.
I've got one more question. Page 61. It shows current things broken up by the pie graph, so on and so forth. And if you flip the page, you go to 63, future land use. it shows all the residential being turned to commercial. This isn't written in stone or anything. I'm just wondering what happens to all those people's houses. If that's the way I'm reading it.
Yeah, that is your future land use classifications from your comprehensive plan.
Yeah, page 61 in the plan. Then it has future land use.
So page 61
Yeah,
is your existing land uses right now.
right.
And that's based on your DOR codes, your Department of Revenue codes. So that's how the land is used right now.
And then you flip to 63 and it turns all red for the most part.
Right. And 63 is your future land use map that's in your comprehensive plan that proposes these future land uses out through the year 2030, I think. So in the future, they see this area developing primarily, the red area is primarily a commercial area. And they see the other areas, you know, the light pink as being residential, the yellow being residential, and the gold being residential.
Okay. I was just wondering about that. I'm wondering what happens to all the residential.
It is all there. What's red is is the downtown business district, although I think there's always been an interest in having the second level of many of the commercial buildings that'd be multi-use, and there'd be second level residential, second and third level.
Okay.
And hopefully that's going to move forward in that pattern, we hope.
Okay, thank you.
And again, the comprehensive plan, as Ms. Walsh pointed out, at some point in the not too distant future does need to be revised or updated.
Correct. This doesn't preclude any of the current or existing uses. This just enables additional commercial uses in the future in the central business district.
Yeah. But all the residential is pretty much still there, and the historic districts that are adjacent to the downtown district. Anything else? Okay, does anybody want to entertain a motion? The motion was pretty much written out. If somebody wants to read it, just have to find the page.
Got it for us
So
on.
here's the recommendation. It's right here, right before you open the actual
Madam Chair.
updated plan with the picture of urban farmhouse on it and azaleas and crabs and bronze mulholland.
Madam
That
Chair,
page before it,
I believe
yes.
Mr. Beaton's trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry,
I
what?
believe Mr. Beaton's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, there it is. It's up on the.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we find that the draft 2021 Palatka Community Redevelopment Plan is consistent with the relevant goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted Palatka Comprehensive Plan. And I think, and I believe that's enough, but maybe not. Yeah. I'll try that as a motion and see if if Mr. Jones and the attorney find that sufficient.
And a formal recommendation to the CRA to consider favorably adoption.
That too.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to follow the recommendation. Obviously, that's spelled out on the screen. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No. Okay. I think we're all set with the changes that we suggested.
All right, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the Historic Preservation Board, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and revisiting this item, taking the time to review it thoroughly. And I also appreciate the diligence that you paid with regards to the depth of your review and the detail of your review.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I apologize. Did I hear Mr. Hollister say he abstained? Mr. Hollister, after the meeting, please fill out a Form 8B for me before you leave. There's a form I'll need you to fill out for your abstention.
Okay, and then we do have another agenda item. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying. since we don't have the other person. 3 of us would be a quorum enough to pass this.
Well, that's true. Yeah, no. We, yeah, there's 4 of us.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
Larry doesn't count.
Oh,
What?
Larry,
He
that's
doesn't
right,
count towards
Larry.
quorum.
Okay, all right,
I
all
shouldn't say that. Larry counts, we count on
Okay,
Larry.
so
But
Larry's
as far as quorum, he
Larry
has to
makes
be
a
physically
quorum, yeah,
present,
okay.
correct, Sonny?
that's a quorum to begin a meeting, but his vote counts as positive towards this item.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next, PB case 21-38, conditional use permit for 3114 Emmett Street. Ms. Walsh?
Thank you. Ms. Sunny is pulling up a Google Earth image so you all can recognize the building. But this
I know
application
what you mean.
is courtesy information for this board because it is within a historic district. At this time, it is a conditional use because the building has historically been a quadplex. So there's 4 units in the building on 2 stories. But it's been vacant for several years. And because of that, the conditional use that it had previously had expires. So the applicant needs to come in and ask for a continuation, basically a continuation of the conditional use. You will be seeing this again before you for improvements that the new owner plans to make. Right now, they have construction plans in to the county to do some foundational repairs that are not visible on the exterior. And I will also be reviewing those just to make sure that they're staying on top of things. As I mentioned, this is just a courtesy information item for you so that you know what's going on in the district and that you'll probably be seeing this again.
Okay, so this was purely informational at this point until he comes before the board for any exterior alterations. So I, for one, am glad somebody's going to do something with that building because it has been vacant and looking pretty shabby for quite some time.
I'm sorry, sir?
Where is it located?
314 Emmett Street.
Right on the corner of Laurel and Emmett. Okay. Do we have any other concerns, issues, comments from the board about any topic in terms of the Historic Preservation Board? Not specific. We're not voting on any of this.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just getting information about what's going on. Any other concerns, Larry, questions that you may have?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
I'll change my vote to a yay. On that.
can we do that? It's too late. We can't, no, I don't think we can do that.
No, we cannot.
Kim?
Mm-mm.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have anything else, Ms. Walsh?
No, ma'am.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
second, we're all set. We've got a motion in a second. Everybody want to adjourn? I bet they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.